In the One Piece universe, Zoro symbolizes honor, loyalty, and sacrifice. He is the second in command of the Straw Hat Pirates and a master swordsman. He is the most mature guy in the crew. After watching 1,000+ episodes of One Piece, we all feel as if we know Zoro as well as a close friend. Even people who don't watch One Piece know Zoro and like him. He could be one of the most legendary characters of One Piece. But how much do we remember the moments that made him a legend? In this video we are gonna explore why Zoro is such a legend in the anime community. Let's look at those legendary moments of Zoro. We don't have to look at what Zoro did in 1,000 episodes or in 100 episodes or not even 10 episodes. It's actually enough if we just look at the first 2 episodes. Back then, Zoro was found on the island where the marine base was located. Do you remember Captain Morgan's dumb son Helmeppo? Helmeppo is a decent guy now, but back then he was a crazy and very cruel guy. He was basically tormenting the island's residents. One day, Zoro took on against Helmeppo because he wanted to protect the people of the island. Zoro taught Helmeppo a lesson. However, since Helmeppo was the captain's son, things didn't go well. Zoro had to surrender to prevent the people from being harmed. He got imprisoned. While he was imprisoned under the hot sun, with no food or water, basically suffering, a young girl secretly brought him food, but Helmeppo caught her and basically stepped on the food. Zoro didn't want the girl to be sad, and to comfort her, he ate the squashed food and even complimented her cooking, though it was a lie. That's when Luffy decided to recruit Zoro. Even when facing death, Zoro was thinking about the promise he made to Kuina, not himself. When we later learned about Kuina, we understood the importance of that promise. After then, Zoro and Luffy escaped the island together and defeated Captain Morgan. From then on, Zoro has always been a character to admire, and this has never changed. How can you not admire Zoro? We are talking about his legendary moments, and let's keep the momentum going. Let's look at the episodes where Buggy first appeared. In these episodes, Nami handed Luffy over to Buggy. Buggy wanted to execute Luffy. When one of Buggy's men was about to kill him, Zoro intervened and saved Nami's life. After that, Zoro cut Buggy, and he thought he killed him, but he didn't know about Buggy's devil fruit powers. Buggy stabbed Zoro in a moment he didn't expect it. Even though Zoro was injured, he carried the cage with Luffy and escaped. After that, Zoro defeated Buggy's strongest man, even though he was injured. Even in these early episodes, we see Zoro's courage and his tolerance for pain. After officially joining the crew, Zoro continued to make significant contributions. He always defeated really strong fighters. For example, he defeated the strongest fighters of the Black Cat Pirates during Syrup Village arc. In the Baratier arc, things got crazy. Something unexpected happened in Baratier. Zoro got a chance to achieve his life goal, to defeat Mihawk and become the world's greatest swordsman. If Zoro could beat Mihawk there, he would have achieved his dream. However, there was a giant gap between Mihawk and him, but he didn't care. He still fought Mihawk. Even Mihawk himself was impressed by Zoro's courage and determination. After Zoro's defeat, he turned to Mihawk and declared, "A scar on the back is a swordsman's shame," opening his arms to face the death. This moment is unforgettable. Mihawk was so impressed that he let him live. After that, as you guys know, Zoro promised Luffy to never lose again, a scene that remains legendary. From that point onward, Zoro has never lost to another swordsman. And do you think Zoro became a legend after this? Of course not, we just started. Next, we have the Arlong Park arc. Despite being injured, Zoro made significant contributions in this arc. He tested Nami's loyalty by throwing himself into the water, forcing Nami to save him. And after that he understood that there was a reason behind Nami's actions. Even while heavily wounded, Zoro defeated Arlong's men and sat on his throne, waiting for Arlong. Another interesting detail is how Zoro forgave Usopp for betraying him. He even wanted to take revenge for Usopp when he thought Nami had killed him. Zoro is someone who quickly forgets wrongs against himself, but he never forgives those against his friends. Zoro is an exceptionally well-designed, cool character, but is he perfect? No, Eiichiro Oda has added small flaws to his character, like his poor sense of direction, or sometimes being too naive. This makes him very relatable and prevents him from feeling too perfect. Even within the story, other characters always admire Zoro's actions. Even as a child, Zoro rejected gender discrimination by inspiring his friend Kuina. Tragically, Kuina passed away shortly after. Despite Zoro's efforts, he could never defeat her. In the early Grand Line arcs, Zoro mostly took the spotlight, especially in Whiskey Peak. Here, he defeated 100 bounty hunters alone, even being very exhausted from the journey. Zoro's coolness, ambition, determination, and enjoyment of combat makes him a fan favorite. When he is fighting for his friends or facing impossible odds, Zoro always stays cool and leaves a lasting impression. His coolness, honor, and loyalty make him an unforgettable character in One Piece. His legendary battles amaze both fans and the story's characters. The phrase, "If I were to become a statue, I'd prefer to be in this pose," made me laugh so much. In the pre-time skip arcs, Zoro had also so many hilarious and goofy scenes, but after this time skip, they have vanished. This scene alone makes it special and unique. By the way, in this arc, Zoro really wanted to cut off his legs and escape from the wax, but thank God Luffy arrived early and saved them. Rather than waiting for death, Zoro was ready to cut off his legs and fight. After that, because of Nami's illness, they moved to Drum Island. And by the way, before arriving, we also saw Zoro lifting weights on the ship. He was swinging a 500 kilogram barbell, basically almost 1,000 pounds of barbell, just like a normal sword. His intense training was because of his frustration that he couldn't cut the candle and wax. He was unsatisfied. He wanted to become stronger and even become strong enough to cut through steel. In the Drum Island, when the crew encountered Wapol soldiers, Zoro defeated all of them. He then carried the injured Dalton to the cable car. Even though Zoro can be as dumb as Luffy sometimes, he's actually surprisingly intelligent. After that, Zoro defeated many Marines and Baroque Works agents. However, his most memorable fight was the fight in Alabasta arc against Mr. One. This duel became more memorable than even Luffy's fight against Crocodile. One of the best aspects of this fight was that we could see the clear progress of Zoro's strength. Mr. One was made of steel because of his devil fruit. No swordsman had ever managed to cut him. That was a tough challenge for Zoro. Zoro struggled a lot and even got some severe injuries. He was close to death, but at one point, he remembered the teachings of his master from his village. His master had explained, a true swordsman can cut what he wishes and leave unharmed what he wants. And that made sense to Zoro. At the brink of death, Mr. One almost killed Zoro. But Zoro rose again, and he had started to hear the sounds of everything around him. At that moment, he truly understood his master's teachings, and with one swing of his sword, he cut a stone into two, proving he was now ready to cut the steel. The duel ended with a really cool scene. Zoro achieved to cut through steel. Despite his victory, Zoro collapsed from blood loss, but he was still worrying about his crew. "I hope Nami has escaped. I hope no one saw me fall," he thought. After that, during the Jaya arc, Zoro didn't defeat anyone significant, but there was this one scene where Zoro followed Luffy's orders and let Bellamy and his crew beat them. This demonstrated Zoro's loyalty to his captain was unshakable. In the Skypiea arc, Zoro fought against one of the priests of Enel. This priest could turn his blade into iron clouds. He was very strong and he could use long-range attacks. So Zoro also developed his style of long-range attacks. After beating the priest, Zoro, Robin, Gunfall, and Viper got all defeated by Enel. However, Zoro showed us his courage and determination again. After Skypiea, in Water 7, Zoro was tasked with staying on the ship. When the Frankie family attacked the Going Merry, Zoro easily beat them. Later, when the crew went to avenge Usopp and steal the money, Zoro joined Luffy and Sanji to raid the Frankie house. In this arc, we saw one important thing about Zoro, his maturity. While Usopp and Luffy were arguing, Zoro stayed silent. and observed them. After the fight, when Luffy was emotionally crushed, Zoro helped him regain his composure. When Luffy started crying and said, "This is too hard," Zoro replied, "This is what it means to be a captain. Don't lose yourself. If you falter, who will we rely on?" This moment shows us that even when the crew is in a low point, by losing 2 members and they're all money, Zoro forced Luffy to hold the authority and keep high morale. And also after 7, when the crew wanted Usopp back, Zoro opposed the idea. He insisted that Usopp should apologize for his actions. Otherwise, the crew would lose his respect to Luffy. For him, disregarding the captain's authority is the greatest disrespect. For him, being crew members was not a simple game. The crew should always be united and face the problems together. This moment also made me wonder, what if in an alternative universe, Zoro formed his own crew? Zoro as a captain would be really cool. Let's keep moving on. The Enies Lobby arc had some of Zoro's most iconic moments. On the train, Zoro sliced through an oncoming train car. The reaction of the government workers in the train car shows us how epic this moment is. Let's keep moving to Thriller Bark. I don't even have to explain the nothing happened scene. This moment was maybe the most legendary Zoro moment. But only 3 people from the crew witnessed or heard about it: Sanji, Robin, and Brook. With this scene, we and also the characters who heard that admired Zoro a lot more. Oh, and also Bartholomew Kuma. But we are still not done with the Thriller Bark arc. There was also a very important encounter for Zoro. We saw Ryuma. Ryuma was a legendary swordsman who lived in the past, but he got resurrected because of Gecko Moria's powers. It was told that Ryuma could slash a giant dragon with only 1 swing with his sword Shusui. But Zoro managed to beat Ryuma, this legendary fighter. Zoro even earned his respect, and Ryuma gave him his sword. I mean, this arc was the arc where Zoro shined the most. Zoro suffered both physically, mentally, and emotionally the most. Even Kuma respected Zoro, and Kuma made him suffer that much. But even after that, he respected Zoro and left without killing Luffy. So, let's keep moving to the Sabaody arc. This arc brings us to one of my favorite Zoro scenes. In my opinion, this Zoro scene is very underrated. Let me ask you, was Luffy the first crew member to attack a celestial dragon? I'm telling you, no. This honor belongs to Zoro. In the first time we were introduced to a celestial dragon, we saw their endless cruelty. Saint Carlos was roaming the streets of Sabaody, riding on top of a human slave. He came across an injured man and medical workers carrying him. This man was almost dying, but everyone was forced to stop and kneel before Carlos because he was a celestial dragon. Saint Carlos stopped the medics and kicked the injured man. He asked the people around him, "What's more important, respecting me, a celestial dragon, or saving an ordinary person's life?" The man replied, "The lives of ordinary people belong to the celestial dragons." At that moment, Carlos saw a female nurse. He declared her to be his wife. The woman was in shock. This was Carlos' 13th wife. Meanwhile, another man was rushing toward them. He said, "Stop, that's my fiancée." Carlos pulled his gun and immediately shot the man. At that chaotic moment, Zoro approached. He was casually drinking and walking by. He had no connection to the incident. The celestial dragon saw him. Zoro normally should have kneeled, but Zoro didn't do that. Carlos was in disbelief. Zoro turned to him and said, "What's your deal?" Carlos pulled out his gun and fired at Zoro, and Zoro dodged those bullets easily. He drew his sword and attacked forward. He was about to end Carlos' life. At that critical moment, Bonnie jumped in and stopped him, pretending Zoro was already dead. It was a crazy moment. Everyone was shocked. Even the craziest supernovas got shocked. The pirates from the worst generation didn't believe that Zoro intended to kill a celestial dragon. When the celestial dragon left, Zoro carried the injured fiancé on his shoulder to the hospital. To me, this moment is one of Zoro's most legendary moments. During the Fishman Island arc, Zoro achieved a lot, but most of his opponents were far below his level. Defeating such opponents and calling Zoro a legend would be an insult to him. Let's move on to the Punk Hazard arc. Zoro made a strong start in this arc. He cut off the head of a dragon that was an artificial dragon created by Vegapunk. It was said to have extremely tough skin. One of Zoro's most iconic moments from this arc was his confrontation with Monet. Monet was a Logia type devil fruit user with the snow fruit, so Zoro actually shouldn't have been able to cut her. However, this scene was different. Zoro had to hold off Monet in order to save the children. Monet knew that she couldn't defeat Zoro. Zoro also didn't attack her, he just defended against her attacks. When Tashigi arrived to protect the children, she thought that Zoro is not attacking Monet because he is underestimating women and not taking her seriously. Finally, Zoro cut Monet. The moment Zoro slashed her, her mind froze in fear. She couldn't recover because she realized that if Zoro had used Haki, he would have cut her in two. So Zoro intentionally didn't kill him, because Luffy only commanded him to protect the children. In this arc, we saw how much stronger Zoro got after the time skip. He could dominate without fully unleashing his strength. His calm presence and wild beast aura makes him one of the coolest and most admired characters in the One Piece. Let's keep going to Dressrosa. In Dressrosa, Zoro shortly clashed with Admiral Fujitora, showing he wasn't afraid of fighting an admiral. Also, his fight against Pika showed us his tactical mind and his incredible swordsmanship. Using the Sanzen Sekai technique, which he had previously used against Mihawk, Zoro delivered a decisive victory. Throughout the arcs, Zoro remained consistent in his character. He was extremely loyal to his captain and the crew. He was always cool and determined, and he always improves himself in order to be the world's strongest swordman. Roronoa Zoro is without a doubt one of the most iconic and admired characters in One Piece. In fact, Zoro and Luffy are the most known characters of One Piece in the world. I have so many friends who haven't watched One Piece, but they still somehow know Zoro and like and respect him. Through his words and actions, Zoro shows us what it means to be a true pirate in Luffy's crew. He's dependable, he is fearless, he is loyal, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve victory. His journey still continues, and it inspires and reminds us why he is a legend. He is a symbol of determination and loyalty. So whether it's slicing through a mountain or standing up to an admiral, or even killing a celestial dragon, one thing is clear: Zoro will always remain one of One Piece's most legendary figures.